Half hour. Hello and welcome to Half Hour, an entertainment podcast through Two Worlds Entertainment. I'm Richie Gross, Artistic Director.
And I'm Jeff Malone, Executive Director.
Welcome to our podcast weekly recap scoop on the theater and music industry news and events of the past week. Today is Friday, July 30th. We're rounding out the month of July, heading into August with some cool scoop on theater, music, shows, all those good things we've been talking about every week. We have some cool stuff to talk to you about today, so welcome. Yeah. And we're heading right over into our first topic today, which is Schmigadoon Land. As we know, on AppleTV Plus, we've been talking about this the last few weeks. Episode 4 just aired today on Friday, July 30th on AppleTV Plus. There are 6 episodes, so we are more than halfway through this series, and episode 4 came out today with 2 more episodes remaining until the season is done. I don't even know if the show will be done or not. I guess we'll find out after the last episode airs. But lots going on in this episode. I thought it was really entertaining. I'm always laughing in this show every episode. I'm always entertained. I'm always a little confused by the plot because the plot's moving in many different directions. But I think it's very entertaining for musical theater lovers and non-musical theater lovers as well. It's getting better and better. I was always good, I think, from the start. But what is your overall thoughts on the episode?
It's one of those shows that started off strong, and I think it's continued to stay strong. Mm-hmm. And I also like starting my Friday mornings with watching this. Usually we watch the show before, and then we come and we record this podcast.
Yeah.
But this episode was titled Suddenly, and the musical numbers in this episode were With All of Your Heart, which was like the, I don't know if you want to call that the Mary Poppins, Maria from The Sound of Music type song. And then there was the Vagina song. And then lastly, Suddenly, which was also great. We're coming to the point in the season that we're meeting the characters that Melissa and Josh are maybe going to fall in love with. It's kind of unclear. So what I'm liking is they're kind of leaving it in this kind of limbo land of like, hey, they know that they're supposed to play this like musical theater game and kind of insert themselves, like how do they fit into the musical story now? But also, do they still love each other? I don't know. Every episode we kind of start with like a flashback that kind of shows like Josh loving Melissa or Melissa really being in love with Josh. But now it's like they're broken up in musical land, and where is it taking us? Do they just fit the mold of the musical and fall in love with these characters, or do they fall back in love with each other? I don't know
where that's going to lead. I guess that's what's the point, right? Is we don't know if their love that they're now finding with the teacher and the doctor in the town are going to get them out of the town, or they're just doing that still to get out of town, or they're really falling in love. I mean, yes, the musical numbers were great. Cecily's moment as the Von Trapp, Maria kind of moment was really, really great. Ariana DeBoe's tap dancing was great. I knew there was going to be a tap dance number coming at some point.
And having the kids all like join in and
for sure. Really, really fun. The ballad at the end, the duets, the quartet, whatever we want to call that, of the 4 of them was really nice. I'm a little. There was also the Alan Cummings character coming out at the church service, and how his wife reacted to that, how the Fred Armisen priest character responded to that, and then also how Kristen Chenoweth's character responded to that, which was maniacal evil woman happy, and I'm not sure what that means for her because we keep learning every episode that she really controls a lot of the town, and I find that out of all the lead characters we're still waiting for a Kristen Chenoweth moment. I'm a little confused that this woman gets 3 to 4 lines per episode and we don't see a full scene with her. We don't see a full musical number yet with her, and almost every other character we have, so I'm like there's got to be a reason why Kristen Chenoweth signed on to this show if they're going to give her more than 2 or 3 lines an episode.
Probably. She's very present. She's actually the character that has kept everyone the same in the town for so long. And now Melissa and Josh come in here, and each person is slowly changing.
Yeah.
But the opposite is happening for Melissa and Josh. They're kind of fitting the mold of the characters of the town.
Yeah.
The townspeople are kind of changing, and maybe everyone's just going to come meet halfway in the middle. So it's interesting.
It is interesting. I think, we'll have 2 more episodes left to kind of wrap this up. It's almost like one really long play or one really long movie that's kind of spread out. It's all happening over the course of a few days. I also think there was this weird plot moment where it's like, the whole thing last episode is we have nowhere to stay. And so now they're staying separately in the schoolhouse where they work, and they're falling in love, for her in the doctor's office. But there's this there's this sense of with these characters, like, it's not just about them anymore. It's about helping the people in the town. I guess that's the point. It's not just about getting out. It was always about getting out. So we'll see. Are they going to try to get out? Are they going to want to stay? Are they going to want to stay and make the town a better place? Is this town really existent in the real world? How do they go back to their real life? And I think that'll be really interesting to see.
Totally.
And also, we keep seeing the billing every week for Jane Krakowski, and I have no idea where she is. And I'm sure she's just making this like one big appearance kind of a thing.
She's going to come in at the end,
maybe at the very end.
Swoop them away.
Yeah, but she's great, and I'm just so confused. Like, why are they top billing her and she's nowhere to be found? So Jane, we're waiting for you. Where are you? Are you coming up? There's only 2 episodes left. We haven't even seen you yet. Are you in this town? Because I feel like we met everyone. Maybe that's the point. Maybe she's someone coming in from out of town. I don't know.
Maybe to like save the day.
Yeah. So
and
that's
I guess the
one.
ultimate question is, will Josh and Melissa end up together at the end?
Yeah, we're going to find that out, especially since it started with the snowfall. The episode ended with the snowfall, that whole thing, right?
Totally.
So good. All right, Schmigadoon, keep posted. We got a few more episodes to go. We're really enjoying that. Check that out if you haven't yet on Apple TV Plus. And moving on to the next streaming platform show.
Over to the other series that we've been currently watching. This is Pop.
On Netflix.
On Netflix. It's episode 4, and this was all about Pop Goes Country, or Country Goes Pop, you know? So this episode focused on many of the talents that have crossed over from the country world to the pop world. And to name a few of these people, it was Willie Nelson, Dolly Parton, Steve Earle, Garth Brooks, Winona Judd, Shania Twain, and the list goes on and on. We always get someone probably crossing over from the country world into the pop music world when they hit the charts. What I found really interesting about this episode was, you know, the country world kind of doesn't want you to cross over to pop. And it's almost frowned upon. When you do it, it's like you've left this little club. And when you're in the club, you stay in the club. And if you leave the club, you're not welcome back. So it's weird, you know, and we've seen many people. I think one of the artists, Nico Case, said it the best. She falls under the category alt country. During the 90s, you know, when the grunge scene was going on and alternative music was like at its high, alt country came about. Obviously, it made sense. But she said it perfect because she was like, country is kind of the only genre that can't evolve. And I was like, that really makes sense. It was like, you have to have this certain look, you have to have this certain sound, and if you don't really fit that mold, then you're kind of just tossed to the side by the country world. I don't know, do you kind of feel that way? I'm always like,
It's interesting because what I learn is, it seems to be like the pop world is open to everyone and everything. If a classical opera singer wanted to release a pop album, I feel like she could. If a Broadway classical golden age sound singer wanted to release a pop, but it's like the second any other industry wants to, if a pop person wanted to be like, oh, I would like to sing opera, the opera world would be like, You know, if the country, you know, it's like some of these worlds kind of get a little, and in the Broadway world kind of too a little bit, right? The Broadway world accepts pop in, but then some of the true Broadway people are like, I don't like this belty riffing pop sound on a Broadway stage. So all these other industries, and then when you look at the country industry, I just don't understand why these worlds don't all get, why is the country, when they say country music doesn't evolve, they're so against these people going over into the pop world. Almost like maybe, and I'm not a country music person, but maybe there's this sense of being felt like they were used. Like maybe there was a sense of I was used. Oh, it was easier for Taylor Swift or Dolly Parton to break into this genre, and then they used my genre and then left my genre. That's the only thing I can think of, because it seems like with pop music, you can make more sales, you get more audience, you become more international. And so maybe there's a sense of you came in, you used me, and then, meaning the genre, and then you left it. And then you feel like you can dip and dab into it whenever you want. Like if Taylor Swift tomorrow wanted to release a country song, she just could. Right. And then she could just go right back to pop. And maybe the true diehard country music people don't like that. I'm just playing devil's advocate because that's kind of what I got from this documentary, was this sense of, oh, you know, we talk about Winona Judd, and then who streamlined her and jumped over her was Shania Twain.
Right.
And that whole sense of like, oh, well, Winona Judd, where were you competing with that?
Right.
I don't really remember You very much from the 90s, although I was young then.
Right.
Shania Twain, I certainly remember because it was in every household.
And that was also kind of the cusp of us coming of age of understanding what like pop music is.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense why we know Shania Twain more than Winona Judd. But look at all the pushback that Shania Twain had from the country industry, because she launched into the country industry and pop industry at the same time. That was such a successful album of Come On Over. But it's like, I don't understand why it has to be this club. You know,
Right.
they use the word authenticity in it.
Right.
But what does that mean? Is there a real definition in the country world of what authenticity means?
Right.
Is crossing over to the pop world not authentic? It doesn't make sense.
It's almost like all the different genres of music are all not respecting each other, or they think one is easier than the other.
Yeah.
And I understand, like, listen, I've been to the Country Music Hall of Fame in Tennessee, and when you go there and you see floors and floors of this massive building of tons of history of country music, it was eye-opening for me. I never really realized how extremely influential country music was, really from like the 1800s and the early 1900s all the way through, and how country music has such a heart and soul in this country. I get it. I'm not a huge fan of country music, but I'm also not even a huge fan of country pop music that goes country. I'm really not. I like when pop music is really fresh, and country pop music is frech too. But
it might just be some of the instruments
Yeah,
in the pop
but I
music
understand
or
that-
the storytelling that doesn't relate to you. But continue
Yeah, I
what
was
you were
going to say,
saying.
I feel like it was just interesting that this documentary kept really quiet on Taylor Swift, because she's the one for the last 10 or 15 years who's really crossed over into that world. And so it seems to be happening. It also seems to really mainly be happening with women. I don't see Garth Brooks crossing over into pop.
Yeah.
You know, yes, we talked about Willie Nelson a little bit earlier. I get that, but you don't really see Lil Nas X. There's a little bit of that too, but he was so new to the scene and then really became pop. Taylor was not that quick in and out of country, but it seems to be happening with women.
Yeah.
Mainly, we can name 4 or 5 women that are they're starting with their country music roots and they're going to pop. I wonder why, if that has anything to do with it, the female country voice. You know,
But I think it's being popular outside of your genre. So pop is always that genre that has multiple genres flooding into it, because it's what? Popular music.
Right.
Pop really isn't a full genre that has a unique sound, because hip hop becomes pop, R&B becomes pop, rock becomes pop, alternative becomes pop, because all of those things hit the charts and then they take off. So when a country song, you know, hits the pop charts, it's because it's so popular outside of the genre alone. And I don't understand why anyone would be upset about that.
Right.
You know?
And pop is popular. So
Right.
what is popular? Things change. We know the 80s was kind of a torn time between pop and rock. And those
Right.
were two popular things at the time, kind of jarring. Or when we learned about the disco era, and we talk about how disco, the movement of anti-disco kind of came in the late 70s when rock music was, wait, no, we don't want this to
Right.
only be the popular thing. So it's interesting to see. I
Because,
just think
right, and that makes
crossover is
sense.
very healthy. I
But
think
it
crossover
also makes sense because, like, yeah, Motown was popular.
Yeah.
Then disco was popular.
Right.
Then metal hair bands
Right.
were
Then
popular.
R&B in the 90s
and
was
R&B
popular.
was popular.
Right.
And then it turned into boy band girl groups
Yeah.
that became popular. And then it became grunge. And, you know, all
It's kind of
these
nice that
things-
nowadays there's no real one form, anything pop. If you look at the top 40
Right.
now, like right now, I feel like it's a mix, and
Right.
I kind of like that. I think that's the future of music, is good, healthy mix. And that's why I said I think crossover is healthy. I really do. I think people crossing into different worlds, as long as you're not ruining your voice, as long as you're not changing a ton of your voice to fit into something that's not working for you. I'm not
Yeah.
saying you can't try it. I'm saying just make sure what you're doing for your voice is healthy. Make sure what you're doing for your look and your image and your band and your crew and your team is healthy
Right.
and responsible. I think that's
One last thing to
well
touch on.
said.
A great example of someone who is so deep in the pop world is someone like Kelly Clarkson,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And she has country roots. She's a
Yeah.
Texas girl.
Yeah.
But if she tried to go into the country world right now, what would happen to her? Would they accept her? Would they let her? She's done plenty of features on country. She's done things with Reba. She's,
Right.
you know, I don't know if they would accept her. And that's someone who could easily do a country album,
Mm-hmm.
and probably sing it really well, have some great country roots, but they might not accept it because they're like, oh, she's
Well, I
just
think
some pop star
I
coming
think
in here and doing country. But guess what? She is country.
I think the person that crosses through the most seamlessly would be someone like Lady Gaga. how she releases an album like Joanne, how she sings big band with Tony Bennett, how she releases electronica pop, that, and then now, you know, stars in films and that are like contemporary and or playing a character. That is someone who crosses in and out of worlds. She could just show up on Broadway and do a Broadway show, and then she could just go right back to. I mean, that is someone who I feel like will just constantly weave in and out. And maybe that's a person to look at and say, okay, what can we learn from that?
Right.
I think it's a I don't care vibe, not a nasty, arrogant I don't care, but I'm going to do what I really want to do as long as what's working for me.
Yeah.
So the confidence, you know, accountability.
It's staying true to who you are. And
speaking of confidence.
Yes, moving to someone, a new guy that I didn't know too much about, but this is someone who's staying true to who they are. A guy named Alek Sandar. He just came out with a track titled Me, You, and the Moon. And I came across this because there's getting some buzz around it right now, but he's currently going through some things with his new single and his accompanied music video for it. He's a Bulgarian singer-songwriter and producer, and he's part of the LGBTQ plus community. He has a new music video that features bi-curious themes, and it's currently not receiving any love from the major labels because it, in quotes, doesn't fit their portfolio and is not okay for their audience. So this is super interesting right now because now we're talking about something that's getting released into this pop dance genre thing, but because it's having like LGBTQ themes, it's getting pushed back. So, and I don't think the song is bad. I think it's pretty catchy. It's a good summer jam. And, you know, we live in this over-sexualized pop world. Why is something like this getting pushed back from a label? Is it because of, you know, the country's values around that? Does it not fit their mold in that way? You know, I wanted to shed light on this because sometimes I find a lot of LGBTQ plus artists don't get a lot of love in the industry. But once they hit it, so someone like Todrick Hall and Kim Petras and some of these people there, they're actually starting to get the love. But not the love that many, many pop stars get. So it's interesting.
Well, it's interesting because I don't find the video to be, you know, I think they say in the article, it's not that sexual. It's PG-13 at most. It's not something inappropriate from, I mean, sometimes you look at some of these videos and you're like, how is that even rated R? Is it rated X? Some of these things. And this was just people singing at the pool kind of a thing. And like, I didn't really find it to be that over-sexualized. But yeah, I don't know if that has anything to do with LGBTQ issues. I don't know if it does. I mean, I guess that's what the point is. But I think, is it specifically bisexuality or is it just the LGBTQ community as a whole? You know, because it is touching on bisexual and bisexual themes and bi-curious themes.
Because you have women doing things, you have men doing things, you
men
have
and women, men and men, women
groups.
and women. So maybe that's what's so, I don't know, maybe that's what some of these labels like, oh, I don't know if I want to touch that with a 10-foot pole kind of thing, but it's like, why? Like, it's just people enjoying themselves and singing a song. It's not a pornographic film. It's nothing. And it's a shame because it is. And when you listen to the song, it's a nice song. You know, he's got a nice song out there.
You can't say no to one and then let someone else do something super over-sexualized. It doesn't make sense to me. So I think people should be talking about this track, and not that in a bad way, in a great way. Like, hey, if the labels aren't going to do anything for it, let's, you know, come together as a community and promote it.
I also think there's something to be said about, we have seen for so long the sexualization and over-sexualization of women in Hollywood, in music, and everything in between. I think yes, there is sex appeal in men. We have seen the Elvis sex appeal from a long time ago. We've seen the Michael Jackson sex appeal. We see the Ricky Martin sex appeal. We've seen the sex appeal over the ages with men. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is, it's always, women have always had this like open sort of concept of sexualization, and there's definitely commentary on that. But we're seeing someone like him, we're seeing someone like Lil Nas X, we're seeing men open up sexually. Not just, oh, a woman's touching my chest, but I am living this openly bi-curious stance in this music video. I'm gay, I'm straight, I'm bi, doesn't matter because I'm living. And for some reason, that's like off-putting to people when it's a man. When it's a woman, oh, I'm doing something sexual with a girl, I'm doing sexual with a guy. It's sexual, and for some reason, oh, that's just accepted in so much. And now we see it with these men being really open and honest, and whether they are straight or gay or bi in their life, they're just portraying something in their art form, their music video, and it's, oh my goodness.
But
oh my goodness. And it's like, once again, we're trying to find labels now. We were always trying to label Michael Jackson. Is he gay? Is he straight? Is he, what is he? You know, we're labeling, or these labeling. And now it's like, now we don't really need to label necessarily. We're just having this open sort of concept. And it's like, people are like, what?
Right.
You know?
Because it happens when it's men doing things with men.
Yeah.
Not just men doing sexual things, because that's been done all the time. Look at a video like Blurred Lines,
Sure.
men doing sexual things.
But it's
or
men,
even boy bands,
right.
like go back to the NSYNC Backstreet Boy days where they're half naked in a music video, but because they're not doing it with each other, it's okay.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I'm not saying one is right or better than the other, one is more right. I'm not trying to get into different rings on this. I'm just saying in general, it's interesting when you see a male opening up sexually, or not even that sexually in this video, but just a little bit.
It was
people are like, oh,
class.
this is not, blah, blah, blah. But I don't. Yeah, it's maybe that's a whole nother conversation for the day. But yeah, that's
well, everyone go check out that video for Alek, Sandar, Me, You, and the Moon.
Yeah, it's a great song.
It's great.
We're going to go jump now to Squeaky Clean G-rated, and we're going to go talk a little bit about...
So squeaky clean.
Disney Plus has their show, High School Musical, the series, which just today finished up its season 2. We had watched season 1, now we've been watching all of season 2. Season 2 has ended. I'm not sure if it's clear if there's a season 3 coming or not. It did end on a lot of cliffhangers, though, for this school and these kids and the teachers and everyone, the parents and everyone involved. So this ended. Listen, I was a big fan of the High School Musical movies back when I was in high school, and they were coming out, and they were wonderful, and I really enjoyed them. And they were great, and they were fun, and it brought like musical theater back to the mainstream for kids and preteens and teens, right? So this is doing the same thing for a new generation. People who watched that and 10, 15 years ago and now are like, oh, new TV show. There's a lot going on here. I think it's great for Olivia Rodrigo. I like the original music. Some of the plots are a little odd to me. I'm not sure where we're going with a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's high school drama. It's cute. It's funny at times. It's nice. It's charming. There's an LGBTQ theme with a romance there, and that's great for Disney. It ended interesting. I don't know. I'm just curious to know what you think of this now that it wrapped up today.
So Richie got me lucky. I didn't watch the first season, but Olivia Rodrigo got me into the second season. I watched it. Yeah. It's interesting. It's not really my full cup of tea, but I appreciate it. Thank goodness Glee came out right after when High School Musical the movie came out, because I was all about Glee. Yeah. But this, I don't know what this show wants it to be, because it sees itself as paying an ode to the original film, and it kind of follows the same plot line at sometimes, but they're just bringing it more modern. But I don't know. I would have loved this show to stick more to it being about the High School Musical and not so much about all these intertwined love stories, and it gets a little messy and following along. It's just, it comes across sometimes as cheesy, corny, and I know it's not really made for my age demographic. It's made for a younger generation, but I don't know, it doesn't really seem real at times.
I think that it's, what some people may be going through with their musical in school and competitions and getting, and the other school competing. I understand that. I do commend Disney on being really, really open with their representation. Yeah. Their body positivity, their gender, their representation, their race representation, their LGBTQ representation. There's wonderful representation across the board, even with the teachers and the students. And it looks like they're having fun. It's really great. I said this after I said, I wonder if any of them will do Broadway. And I'm like, it's interesting. You don't get a ton of crossover. And a lot of the original High School Musical people didn't go do Broadway. A lot of the Glee people didn't go do Broadway after that show. Now it's this. If this was to end, could some of them go do Broadway? Oh, maybe it'll go season 3. I'm not sure.
Well, sometimes when you get in these bigger TV shows, your name gets a little bit bigger, and so does your ego. So it's like, how do you cross that? Do you want to be doing 8 shows a week on Broadway, or are you just content with your life in the TV movie world? I will say one thing that I do kind of like the little theme is like this, the Menkeys Awards. It reminds me of being in high school and doing theater, because we had our own little high school awards, and it was super competitive. You went and saw other people's shows. It wasn't as competitive as trying to sabotage other people, but it was fun to have a reason to want to do the show as well.
It was kind of nice that the message at the end was like, we don't need that. We are content with what we just did. And I think that's always got to be a reminder of theater, right? Like, you are working as a team to put something on. And one thing I also don't always understand about like competitions like in football, you're all playing the same sport.
Yeah.
But in theater, how do you compare a production of Pippin to a production of Beauty and the Beast to a production of, like Mamma Mia? Like, they're all very, like, I don't know, like different choreo, different art form, different vocals, different style. It's hard to compare and compete. And so it should just be about putting the show on and feeling it. Did you feel like you did as best as you could, and did you learn something? I think that kind of tie that in at the end. Because so many schools, maybe there's a lot of kids there's probably a ton of kids watching this show being like, we don't have competitions at our school. We barely have a budget. We barely do a show. Right. We haven't done a show because of COVID. Whatever you're going through, so you see that, and it kind of was a nice message at the end.
It's not all about the awards, but you know, the Tonys do that.
Well, the Tonys do that.
But so does every industry, and so does even in sports. What's the major goal to get to the World Series or the Super Bowl or
the Olympics?
The Olympics,
things like that. Yeah.
When you have a gymnastics team that takes 5 to 7 gymnasts, well, you're competing for something.
Right. So
it gives it's a rewarding.
Yeah. Right. But. All right, we're going to wrap up here with our last thing we talk about every week here, RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars Season 6, which is now on Paramount+, the fourth streaming platform I just mentioned today, Apple TV, Netflix, Disney+, and now Paramount+. So we said goodbye to Jan last night on RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars 6 in an interesting way because there was a tie. There was a Jan and Pandora tie, which, wow. I mean, I really was torn in my head, too. Like, they could both go home for their own reasons. One being someone is competitive and the other being someone had a bad week. And so you don't forget, then was a tie and Ru was like, in this case, I thought it was going to go back to Ru. I said, no, it goes back to the winner. And the winner is the tiebreaker.
And in All-Stars, we've never had a tie vote.
No. With the winner having to break the vote. So it was Jan who got that last vote, and Jan did go home. Pandora was saved another week, which is interesting because I'm kind of torn on it. I could have seen Jan going further, but Jan was in the bottom 3 weeks in a row. When you're in the bottom 3 weeks in a row and you keep constantly saying, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do great, I'm going to do that's tough. But then Pandora, who's also kind of just coasting by on thin ice every week, but what is coming up next? The Snatch Love game where you play a celebrity or impersonator. We know Pandora is really good at that. So this is a great week. She could save herself another week and really make it far. I don't know.
So we're getting down to the final 6. There were 13 queens, right?
Yeah, we're close now.
Because usually it's not that many.
Yeah, so now we're at 6.
We know that there's a game within the game. If we hear it one more time, someone's going to freak out.
It's like, we keep thinking at the end we're going to get something out of it, and it's like, is the game in the game that someone comes back, or are they all doing something right now that we don't know about? Are they all going to be competing? I don't know. I have no idea. They keep getting stopped, leaving the workroom, and saying, do you want to stay? So they're not actually getting in the car and leaving as they do in a lot of these.
Well, here's the thing. It's always a bit predictable that there's going to be some sort of a comeback challenge. So maybe it's next week. Maybe the other girls that went home are going to be doing the Snatch Game of Love as well.
Right. We always keep thinking it's like maybe we have to wait till the top 4. I don't know.
But just to touch a little bit more on this season, this episode, this was a singing challenge episode. So we had a new track called Show Up Queen, and it was all about, if you had to sing to your younger self, what would you sing to them? And I do felt that some of the queens really hit the mark on this. Yeah. People like Trinity, Kay Bonet, Raja, Eureka, and Kylie, I thought hit the message. And they looked great. Even Ginger, she hit the message as well. But I do think that Jan and Pandora deserved the bottom on this one because they just didn't hit that mark. And each week they're telling Jan, you need to elevate your drag, which is why I think it was a little mature for Jan to come back on All Stars. She was just on her season, and now she's here. Yeah. Where was the growth? Yeah. But Pandora, if you've watched Pandora over the marks, it's like, she was this, then this, then this, and now she's here, and it's great. It's a little sad that she still is only just being comfortable with herself, but still, that should have been able to come through the song, and she would have had a better week. Yeah. So it's like, I am really enjoying this season. It's great after coming off of last season and last All Stars. It's like, I'm just, Let's go.
Well, we got, like I said, you know, we have a few more episodes of This Is Pop. We have a few more episodes of RuPaul. We have a few more episodes of Schmigadoon. We're kind of wrapping up a lot of these shows right now as we're kind of wrapping up the summer, getting ready for where we're taking our podcast next, which is hopefully some live performances.
Yes.
And we're talking about a mix of things, more TV shows coming in the fall. So we talk about all entertainment, pop and theater, and we love it. And this is a great week to talk about all these different
Right,
shows.
and we have we're gonna have a week of music next week.
Yeah, we're coming up. Well, soon. Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of music. Yeah, a lot of
there's
music.
a bunch of music
There's
things
a lot
that
of
we're gonna
music
talk about.
coming
So
up.
maybe this week on our story we're gonna promote some of those. So
there's a lot of
so that
albums
you
coming
listen to them ahead of
Yes.
time. But you know, anyway.
There it is. It's time. It's time. So yes, please check us out all over social media. We hope you enjoyed our podcast today. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify or Apple Music. Leave us a review if you love what you heard today. Join in the conversation. Engage with us. Head over to our Instagram at Two Worlds End. We also have a new Instagram handle for our podcast. It's at Half Hour Podcast.
Yes.
So if you want to follow Two Worlds, and you could also follow at Half Hour Podcast. Both of those. We'll be putting most of our podcast stuff up on the new Instagram handle. So go check out there, comment on the latest post about this podcast episode. We'd love to hear from you. And yes, like I said earlier, please subscribe to our podcast on Spotify or Apple Music. Leave us a review. That's all for today. So we're signing off for now. Until next time, I'm Richie.
And I'm Jeff.
Ta-ta.
Bye.